fitness for me is all about health, and it's not just physical health. There's physical fitness, there's spiritual fitness, there's emotional fitness, and the fitness aspect is putting in the work every day to reach your goals.
Love it.
So whether that's spiritually, like for me, that's spending time with God. Emotionally, making sure that if I'm depressed, am I talking about it? Am I challenging myself to be open about whatever I'm struggling with? And then obviously physically, fitness is showing up and doing the work.
I am an everyday athlete.
I am an everyday athlete.
I am an everyday athlete.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mark McCain with not Jarrett Baston today. He's training someone. You're listening to Everyday Athlete, a podcast devoted to bringing you the amazing stories behind the lives of day-to-day CrossFit athletes like yourself. And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Aaron Hunt, who is a gentleman that I've got to know over the last couple years, and I'm excited for him to share his story. So without further ado, welcome, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
And we're here on this early morning here. Just got done with some CrossFit classes at the gym. And yeah, man, if you want to maybe fill in everyone a little bit about your story, maybe a little where you're from, how you, if you did move here to Northern Kentucky, and,
Sure.
and what's going on with your life.
Yeah, so I'm a Northern Kentucky guy. I've lived here my whole life.
Excellent.
And I'm married. I'm a husband. I have two beautiful daughters, Marianne and Juliet. Juliet is 2. Marianne is like 3 months. So not getting a lot of sleep right now.
Oh, yeah.
But beyond that, I'm a musician and a music producer. I work for a church called Crossroads Church that is based out of Cincinnati. But we have people meeting all over the country through our streaming experience. And my job at Crossroads now is I'm on our national music team, and I'm a part of anything from mixing our weekend stream, mixing the audio from that, and then also producing music for us. And before that, I was a worship leader at our Florence, Kentucky campus, and that's where we met.
Yeah, man. I was blessed to meet you through watching you lead worship. And then one night in particular, I felt like I was kind of feeling prompted to reach out to you. So I volunteer there at Crossroads in Florence and just do some basic type stuff. But ended up getting your email from the guy that leads the facilities there, who actually comes to the gym now. And yeah, man, it was one of those things where felt like some different things were working for my life, and I was like, I feel like I can help this guy, because you kind of got vulnerable on stage one night and was just sharing an experience about maybe wanting to lose a little bit of weight. So I was like, you know what, I think I can help him. And then I'll never forget your response, because I sent this email and I was just like, hey, I'll send him an email, and if he responds, awesome. If not, I'm sure he's a busy guy and everything like that. And then I don't know how long it was, maybe we'll call it 6 months.
Yeah.
You responded and you're like, epically late response. But I'm actually interested in this fitness thing.
If it's any longer than a month, you just shouldn't respond.
Yeah, it's all good. No, I'm so glad you did, though, and it's been awesome, like getting to know you and the type of person you are. And so yeah, man. So we got.
Well, I'll say something about that night where I mentioned that I needed some help with my fitness. One of the things at Crossroads that we really value highly is, like you said, vulnerability.
Sure.
So one of the hardest things for any of us to do is recognize that we have flaws. And then even going beyond that is saying, recognizing it is one thing, but then actually telling people, like, man, I have a flaw.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of flaws. But I believe there's huge power in recognizing those things and then actually speaking them, because if I hadn't have said that night, like, we wouldn't have got connected.
Nope.
I wouldn't have found CrossFit. I wouldn't have found the community that we have here. And that was all just because I stepped out of my comfort zone and said something that was really hard to say.
Sure.
That could potentially even be embarrassing. Like, I'm telling a lot of people, like,
Sure.
hey,
Yeah, it wasn't just me.
yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm overweight, and I don't want to be overweight, and I need some help.
Yeah, I
You
think
know?
that's so
is
super
really hard.
important. I'm so glad you just expanded upon that, because when I look at just the lives that we live this day and age with cell phones, and a lot of kids are growing up with not really having a lot of conversations. They're interacting through text and stuff like that, and that's to a certain extent better than non-interaction. But when you look at the people, maybe your spouse, your best friend, stuff like that, you ultimately have to get vulnerable with those people, and they know a lot about your life. You would like to think, if you have a best friend, it's like, oh yeah, I have this person that I can rely on. If I'm ever having issues with this, that, or the other thing, I lean on this person. And there's a certain part of me that I'd like to not think this, that a lot of people are missing out on that just through not becoming vulnerable like you did. So, because it takes courage. It takes a lot. And one of the things, obviously, with CrossFit that we'll obviously encourage here through our group classes is just that interaction. And so many people have expressed, like, hey, I don't really get much interaction, especially like you're dealing with new kids right now. So we have some moms or some dads that are spending a lot of times with kids, and it's like, this is the only time I get to talk to people my age, and so on and so forth. But yeah, being vulnerable is a really, really tough thing to do, but there's a lot of kind of fruit in expressing your vulnerability to other people. And 9 times out of 10, they're probably going through a similar situation, and they were just like, oh, I'm so glad he said that.
Yeah, well, when you open up and you say something hard like that, it gives people freedom to talk about the stuff they're struggling with too. And I only say that because that was modeled for me.
Yeah.
Over the last several years, was somebody shared something really hard with me, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, I can talk about this too. It's okay.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, man, what were you doing before you found Crossroads?
All right, so been a musician my whole life. Started playing drums when I was in 5th grade, I think. Yeah, so like 10 to 12, and I just knew from then, like, the moment I started playing the drums, I just knew, like, music was my thing.
Nice.
I didn't have to think about anything else. I'm like, I'm gonna do music. It's all I want to do. So, all through high school, played in bands, picked up other instruments because I always played at my church, and I grew up in smaller churches. So whoever was leading the music would say, like, hey man, we need a guitarist. I'm like, okay, cool, I can learn the guitar. Yeah. So my brother played guitar. I learned from him, took all his stuff, and then started playing. But then got through high school, senior year, I started a band with my buddy called Seabird, and we actually pretty quickly gained some traction, and within a year we had signed a record deal with EMI out of Nashville. So it's crazy. So in my mind, I'm like, sweet, I made it.
Right.
Like, I don't even have to worry about this anymore. I signed a major record deal when I'm 18.
Heck yeah.
Doing stuff I love, playing music with my best friends, and we're gonna tour the world and we're gonna take over.
Heck yeah. I mean, of course, that's the next logical step.
Yeah. So it turns out I spent about 5 years in that band on a major label, and I made about $1,000.
Oh, jeez. Is that not good? I'm not great at math, but
yeah. Well, it turns out if I would have invested it.
Yeah.
But it was incredible. Had a ton of really,
you went on
really,
like tours and stuff.
Yeah, went on some tours.
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
My favorite thing was we had the opportunity to work with a producer in Nashville. His name was Jakir King, and he had produced stuff for Kings of Leon, some really big bands. And that's where I really found out that my true passion in music was in producing and recording. So after I left Seabird, I went to recording school and just kind of dedicated my music path to recording and producing and mixing. So throughout that, I played in a couple other bands, kind of honing my recording craft along the way. And then there was one night I went to this worship event in Atlanta, and I know this may seem weird, but I believe that God can speak to us. And I was listening to this worship event, and I really felt like God had asked me to lead worship and to pursue leadership, which for me, like, I'm super introverted. I have no desire to do any of those things. And it was the first time in my life that I felt like God had made something really clear. So I felt like, okay, I need to be open to this.
Right.
And then literally 2 days later, I met my boss, Robbie Ryder, at Crossroads, who I had no connection with, and just started a relationship with him and told him, like, hey man, I think I'm supposed to pursue leadership and worship, and I've never really done it before, and I know Crossroads is kind of like the biggest church. Yeah. But I just feel like I want to be obedient to what I'm supposed to do, and
that's powerful.
He just said, "Cool, man. I'll teach you everything I know." I'm like, what the heck?
Wow.
So I served at the church every weekend for like 4 months, and then he offered me the job as the worship leader at Florence. And then I served there faithfully for 4.5 years, and now I'm in my recording and producing role at Crossroads. So
back in your passion. Yeah, that's funny how that all comes around.
Yeah, so that was kind of my professional path in music over the last 10 years.
It's very interesting. There's a lot to kind of chop up there and dissect a little bit. One of the things that stuck out, you said you're an introvert, and again, whenever I met you, you're in front of 1,000 people on stage. So it's I find that a little bit funny.
Right.
Whenever you were touring with the band Seabird, were you the singer?
No, so I was the drummer.
You were the drummer. Okay,
yeah.
so you didn't have to be
right. I was the guy in the back.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm comfortable being the guy in the back.
Okay. So that is such a big step then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you didn't know Robbie before?
No, I'd never met him before.
And it was just like, hey man, I'm feeling this prompt. Did he ever give you a little confirmation, like, hey, I was expecting to meet someone like you, or it was just kind of a...
Yeah, that was one of the coolest things in the whole process. Was we met up for a lunch at Skyline up in Oakley, in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Skyline time.
So much better than Gold Star.
Whoa! The internet just exploded. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, so we had a meeting, and we were just talking about a conversation very similar to this, just getting to know each other, and me sharing my story with him. And I remember walking away from that lunch. I actually called my mom, because I didn't have a job at the point, but I needed one, but I just really wanted to do something in music.
Sure.
I called my mom, and I said, Mom, I don't know why I think this, but like, I think I'm going to be the worship leader at Crossroads Florence. I have no reason to believe this, but I just have this feeling that this is like what I'm supposed to do for the next season. And after Robbie hired me 4 months later, he told me at that same meeting at Skyline, he called his wife and said, I think I'm going to hire this guy.
Oh, wow.
I think he's the guy.
Nice.
So it was cool. We both kind of had the same thought leaving that meeting, and never talked about it until after I was hired.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And obviously it worked out pretty good for both of you.
Yeah.
You're phenomenal at what you do. Maybe talk a little more in depth about what you're doing now, as far as maybe just for the casual listener that doesn't know much about how stuff is produced, recorded, like from kind of point A to the Z.
Yeah, so there's multiple levels to my job right now at Crossroads. The main thing that I'm working on now is we have started doing a stream of our services, so you can go to crossroads.net/live and watch any of our services. And every weekend, I'm actually mixing the audio that gets sent to that stream.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. I mean, last weekend we had a big Super Bowl weekend where we do a big party. We call it the Super Bowl of Preaching.
A lot of fun.
And we had almost 20,000 people watch that online.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So my job over the last month has been to improve the quality of our audio for our stream. And then once I'm finished improving it, somebody will come in and take over, and then I'll move on to something else. So it won't be my long-term thing. But really my goal and my hope with my new role at Crossroads is anything I touch, I just want to help improve it.
Sure.
You know, from an audio perspective.
Sure.
The other side of that is, which is really what I'm excited about, is producing and recording and mixing original songs. So one of the things that we want to do is at least once a year release an album of original worship songs that we've written at Crossroads.
That's awesome.
And what I do in that process is I record them, produce them, which is cutting stuff in and out, you know, writing parts, guitar parts, piano parts.
Yeah, I know you had. Sorry to jump in. You produced a CD recently, the Man Camp CD. That's been something that's been instrumental with my journey. Personally, I've been the 3 of those. Just signed up to lead a 4th.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
I'm super excited about that. A little nervous, but I'm sure I'll have a lot of help in a lot of different areas there. But and again, not to derail you, whenever you're making that CD, like what is that? What kind of? So that they obviously take the songs from the production of Man Camp, and then you're just, like you said, you're layering things on top of there to make it sound a little better. Yeah,
so it depends. Every project is different. You know, like we talk about making an album or recording a record, and it sounds like this big glamorous thing. And the reality is that most of it is me sitting in a tiny room by myself with headphones on, like editing things. You know,
over and over. Yeah.
But for me, every single project is different. So I do different types of projects for Crossroads, but I also do freelance work outside of Crossroads, recording and producing. And for me, it's literally different every single project. So for the Man Camp Blood Brother stuff, like we wanted that to be as live and as raw as possible, because that kind of lines up with the ethic of going to camp and camping. You know, you just want it to be raw. So we tracked a lot of that together live. You know, so not a lot of separation between the instruments. Whereas if you're doing a pop recording, like anything popular right now, Demi Lovato, Justin Bieber, like all of that stuff is recorded individually, and most of it's not even real. Most of it is.
Wait,
hold on a second.
Justin Bieber's not real.
Who's Justice Bieber?
We gotta end this. No, I get it. Yeah. So again, I mean, for me, I'm not like technologically savvy. So I, diving a little deeper into some of that stuff is always super interesting, because like you said, it's not glamorous. I think a lot of people are like, wow, you got a producer, like you just get to do, you do all this fun and exciting stuff all day. It's like, no, I have to, like you said, sit in a room and with my headphones on and replay and mixing these little things. And I'm sure tensions can get high sometimes if something's not right.
Yeah,
because do you consider yourself a perfectionist then?
Oh yeah.
Does that kind of just go with that line of work? Like,
not necessarily. Yeah. Like, it definitely depends on the different types of producers. But I'm absolutely a perfectionist in every area of my life, and probably to a fault, to the point where, and actually I can relate this to CrossFit.
Sure.
So like being a perfectionist means that I have to make a plan, and it has to be perfect. And if I mess up on that plan, then I have failed.
Ooh.
So when I first started CrossFit, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm going to come 3 days a week. I'm going to come on these days. And there is absolutely, yes, a part, like, you need to make the time and come.
Sure.
But if I would miss a day, all of a sudden that totally derailed me. I couldn't make it up.
Yep.
So if I missed a Monday, I'm like, okay, well, I failed this week. So rather than coming on Tuesday,
right.
Like, well, I failed, so I'm just going to have to start again next week.
Yeah.
So part of it is just changing your thinking and realizing that, you know, there's going to be days that I fail. There's going to be days that I mess up. But what do I do the next day?
Yeah, I had a conversation with a guy last night in a group, and he is struggling with not knowing what he wants to do with his life. And he's a younger guy. And, you know, again, my advice, whether it be right or wrong, just, again, felt prompted to tell him, like, you have to be all right with the not knowing. You know, because, I mean, so many of us will fail daily. So many of us will maybe pursue a career that we think that, you know, this is what we're meant to do the rest of our lives, and then only, unfortunately, lose that job, or unfortunately, you know, find something else. I shouldn't say unfortunately, but fortunately, you maybe find something that you like even better. You know, and with CrossFit in particular, you know, some things that happen with that is, you know, maybe you have a little setback. Like you said, hey, life gets busy. My wife's pregnant. She has a baby, and now we're having some sleepless nights, or whatever it is. You have to, like, constantly adjust and reframe, and that's just life, you know. And one of the things too is you know, us as believers, we want to root ourselves in our beliefs that are Christ, and the more deeply we can root ourselves there, whenever we're combative with issues against those, then ultimately we can you know, stand fast and firm in those beliefs. And with fitness, that's why I personally want to build up my fitness to the point where if I ever have a disease, you know, unfortunately happen, that I can combat that disease. You know, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's just one good decision at a time. Like, what's my next meal look like? Is it healthy? You know, start there. And you know, one of the things I've heard with nutrition, if you have a cupcake, think of it like a flat tire. You're not gonna, you know, you're gonna get a flat tire, you're off the road, change the tire. You're not going to flat nail a 3, right? So it's like, change the one tire, get back on the road, start driving again. Because birthday parties happen, holidays happen. It's that whole, you know, like you said, that mentality of, if I miss a Monday, the rest of the week is messed up. And that's one of the things you're struggling with. And honestly, dude, that's real. That's real life. Like, people struggle with it 100%. So, yeah, man, we'll kind of transition here to a little bit about you know, experience with CrossFit, maybe even before CrossFit. Like, were you doing, this could be anything, you know, not necessarily immediately before you started CrossFit, but what was your fitness background like before you found us?
Yeah, so the one thing in fitness and working out, the one thing that I've always enjoyed is weightlifting. So me and my buddies in high school, we would do weightlifting in my buddy's garage, and the cardio has always been
cardio.
It's more like cardino.
Yeah,
is what I would.
I say cardio. I say it's foreign. It's foreign to me. So, but you have to mix it in. You know, it's kind of important.
Yeah, but for me, I think health and fitness was not something that was modeled to me. You know, so and you know, we can get in deeper with this. I think a lot of my issues have been with I realized that I needed to focus on some of my mental health before I could actually make progress with my physical health. I didn't realize that until late last year when I started doing some counseling. But my father passed away like 9 years ago, and he was super unhealthy, you know, to the point where him and my mom were vegetarians, but like his version of being a vegetarian was like eating fries and chips, you know. So he was an amazing dad. We had an incredible childhood, but I think all of this stuff is coming up for me because I have kids now, and I'm realizing like, man, it's really important for me to teach them and to model to them how to take care of themselves.
Absolutely.
You know, and for me, I think part of it, I was the youngest of 4, so I think there was the very realistic thing of my parents were tired.
Yeah.
You know, they had 4 kids. My dad had a business where he was working 90 hours a week. So I think, I mean, for a lot of us, the first thing that goes when things get stressful is your health.
The number one reason
You know.
people eat what they eat is
Yeah.
convenience. So
Sure.
no doubt he's probably eating some fries in there with
Yeah.
quick fixes. But
Yeah. So for me, when I was 13 to 18, that's kind of what I saw was, yeah, you can kind of eat whatever you want. And I didn't know that it was having any effect on him physically, So I don't know. I grew up like wanting to be healthy and like wanting to work out, but like didn't really have anybody in my life that was a priority to them.
sure.
So for me, music was the only thing I cared about. And other than that, I pretty much just ate garbage and didn't really ever pay any attention or put any priority to my health.
Yeah, man. That's common. The short answer. For me, I was a big sports guy growing up, so I did a lot of sports, and one of those was football. And I remember my mom used to make me like mac and cheese before football games. Like, oh, you got to get those carbs before football. And like that was literally the worst thing I could have done. Like that makes you slow and lethargic.
Right.
I'm going out there and playing both ways for 4 quarters. Like I don't think this is a good idea. But so yeah, you just don't know, and you have to kind of like I was saying a second ago. You have to be okay with that. Like, all right, hey, it was a phase of my life I just didn't know.
Yeah.
But especially in this day and age, you can't use that excuse anymore.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
no one can. Like for me with technology, like, oh, I don't know how to turn on my phone. Like, well, that's your own fault.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? It's hard.
Yeah.
And you have to combat against that daily. It's hard to want to surround yourself with positive people in a world that wants to just tear you down. So whenever you get plugged in, where you work right now, that's all, and again, I'm not saying everyone that works at any church or gym or wherever is perfect. There's going to be a toxic environment, it's realizing that. And like I said, being the light in those types of environments can sometimes, be tough, taking that minority position. So, kind of what I'm saying is whenever you're combating against nutrition and fitness, sometimes it's okay to say, I don't know. But the next step is to follow through with learning a little bit more. So myself, whenever I was growing up, I got the fitness bug through my older brother doing a bunch of heavy bench press in the basement. I was like, oh man, that looks cool. He's down there jamming out to Pantera, Metallica in the basement lifting weights. I'm like, I want to be like that. And I was always a real scrawny kid, and the first thing I kind of did with that, I saw him taking some different supplements. All of a sudden I started reading about this stuff and I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually really interesting. I really, really like doing this. Kind of like with music with you. You were like, wow, I really like this.
Right.
Ultimately, there's going to be some things like I don't like diving deep into technology, but guess what? It's not going anywhere, so I should probably read some articles from time to time on it. So if you're listening and you're like, I don't know about CrossFit, I'm going to get hurt. It's like, read a little bit about it. Like, do a little research. Don't just listen to the loudest voices,
Sure.
And that's the same thing, like, if you're thinking about, like, going to Crossroads or any other place, like, don't just always do your own research. Do your own independent research on things. And then, actually have your own independent opinion. So you're talking about, diving into some fitness early on. It wasn't really, obviously, a staple of maybe growing up. But I think you had a friend that kind of got you involved a little bit with doing some more weightlifting. And then maybe there was a little bit of time there in between that program and then ours.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, coming off what I was talking about growing up and, with my family, health just wasn't a part of our everyday lives. But I think I realized that, some things that are important to you, you just have to step up and do them.
Sure.
Whether you want to or not. So I realized most of my life with my health, I've been super passive.
Sure.
Just like, well, I'll take care of it. It's not too bad right now. Like, I've got other things that are more important or like more stressful or just really getting like in the way, and I'll deal with it later. And any time in my life when I have that mentality of I'll deal with it later, that means I'm never going to deal with it.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's being passive. So for me, the last couple years of my life have really been challenging myself in the areas where, man, where am I being passive? I don't want to be passive. Like in all of my heroes and all of my models, anybody from Jesus to like Brandon Flowers from the Killers, or anybody that's doing amazing, incredible things that I look up to.
Right.
I did just compare Jesus to Brandon Flowers.
That's
from the
fair.
Killers.
It's probably maybe the first time ever, but
I love the Killers. They're my favorite band. So
they're pretty good.
Brandon, if you listen to this, I love you, man.
We got a lot of listeners.
I'd love to meet you.
It's gonna go viral. But I don't
want to be passive. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's another. We talked, originally about vulnerability. That passivity.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing. And I actually just wrote a little article. I think we just threw it up the other day on, when is too late. I have some family members that are unhealthy, and it's kind of like you were saying, maybe had some unhealthy people in the house, and it's kind of I was honestly, when I got really into weightlifting in college and stuff, and I was kind of a joke, like, oh, here comes tough guy lifting all those weights, and they like tried to like ostracize me, like like, oh, you gotta eat a salad. And it was honestly kind of tough, like being around the family sometimes, because they were like constantly hit me with knee slappers about being in shape,
about
and fit,
getting healthy.
Like I was literally probably in the best shape of my life, and they were like making fun of me for it. So, but guess what? I stood firm on my beliefs that, hey, look, I'm doing the right thing, and sometimes it's not always as obvious as that, but taking an active role might not always be an obvious decision, but it should be. So we're doing a Bring a Friend month right now, February. So the blog I wrote the other day was a little bit about just, hey, when are you going to finally ask someone to come? And it has nothing to do with us trying to grow our business. It has everything to do with you trying to grow in friendship, with people that hopefully you love that are around you. Like, why wouldn't you want someone you love to be healthy? Why wouldn't, if you have the opportunity to put 5 extra years on someone's life, you better take it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying just because you invite them to one workout, it's going to change their life, but who knows? Who knows? You like you said, hey, I invite this person to one visit to Crossroads. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, and that's, so, but yeah, man, with CrossFit, we got some time left here. Maybe a little bit about that journey.
Yeah.
With, what did you think coming into it? Was it like, oh, it's going to be, Slayer playing the whole time on volume 100 and just, drill sergeants walking around and all that stuff?
Yeah, so, continuing the fitness journey, my buddy, who has now started a business of online coaching, I was kind of his first guinea pig of coaching. And this was, 5 years ago, something like that. Maybe even longer. It was probably about 5 years. That was my first journey in like actually having somebody coach me and train me. But unfortunately, because it was the first time that he had done it, it was way too intense and way too much too fast, So like literally the first time I worked out, I remember.
Oh boy.
I got up the next day and I told my wife, I'm like, babe, I can't get out of bed. Like, I literally cannot move my legs.
I'm paralyzed.
I couldn't move them. Like, she had to move my legs.
Oh, jeez.
So I could get out of bed.
Yes.
And I'm like, and my initial response to that was like, okay, cool, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to feel that way.
Right.
But I stuck with it, and there were some huge wins in that.
Sure.
We did it for maybe 2 months. where I was really, really strict with my eating. Worked out several times a week with him.
Sure.
And I lost weight. I felt great.
Awesome.
And I learned a lot about, man, I'm putting some terrible things into my body that are really affecting the way that I feel.
Education piece, right?
Yeah. And that was the first time that somebody actually took the time to, like, it was another thing. Like, I reached out to him because he was one of my best friends. I'm like, man, I really want to get healthy. He's like, well, hey, I know a lot about health. And
ding, ding, ding.
And I actually would like to do this for a career, so you can be my guinea pig.
Sweet.
So that was a good step. Obviously wasn't the right fit because it was a little bit too intense, and we laugh about it now because he's dude, I'm so sorry.
I do that all the time too, man. Being, whenever short story, whenever I first started training, I was at the University of Cincinnati and doing personal training there. And you literally have a football field, a track, like multi-million-dollar weight facility, a pool, all these things at your disposal. So you're like, I'm going to use them all. So I remember I had this one student who, had ambitions to get stronger and then more endurance or what have you. But I just remember basically we were doing suicides at the whole football field. And at the end of each, 20-yard suicide, we would run one flight of stairs. And I think we were about 10 minutes in and he was just completely done. And I'm just like, all right, something's wrong here. So anyway, moral of the story, same thing with your recording and things like that. You probably look back and listen on original stuff and you're like,
wow, this is the worst.
Yeah. So you each year to year, you're like, wow, I did not know a single thing last year. And that's honestly one of the things that keeps me super interested in the field of fitness because it does change so much, and there's just such a vast amount of things out there that you can learn. But so you were initially with your friend, and you got your spaghetti legs and
right. Yeah, and then we, since I've been married for 4 years now, and really since day one of getting married, like I've had this goal of getting healthy, and it's because as soon as I got married, I realized that my priorities have changed. So I spent my entire life really kind of focusing on myself and focusing on my own goals, and getting married really opened my eyes to the importance of setting your priorities and your goals. So every day I wake up and I really try to remind myself of what my priorities are. And those priorities for me are always going to be God first. Yep. Then my wife is second, my kids after that, and then comes everything else.
CrossFit. What?
Right. Yeah. Which that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like that is one of my struggles is. Right now, really the only class I can come to is the 6:30 class. 6:30 a.m. And man, it's hard. It's hard juggling everything.
Sure.
Just being super real. It is hard juggling. Being a good dad, being a good husband. Spending time with God, and then also making a priority of my fitness. But I had this revelation recently that. The more I prioritize my fitness and my health, that actually gives me more energy and more
100%
capacity to love and to serve and to be with my family. So those nights where I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so tired.
Dude, I'm so glad you just said that. I wish everyone could understand what you just said there, and it's so key, man. It's so key. Because it's like eating sugar pops every day, and then you discover vegetables. And you're like, wow, I can think clear. Yeah. And I wake up and I'm not groggy. Stuff like that. But so first day of CrossFit, you remember the workout? What was it? Did it just wipe you out, or did we actually maybe try to build you up a little bit before we tore you down?
Well, I remember. So I'm. I think I've been doing CrossFit for about a year and a half now.
Excellent.
My first workout was in the previous building,
which
you were getting ready to move.
Yep.
I think you had about a month left, but it was in the summer, and I think we did maybe 3 weeks of just one-on-one rather than. And I actually remember because you were like, "Hey man, I want to help you. I want to like obviously CrossFit's all about classes, but we're just going to start with personal training.
Yeah, I had
You know?
I wanted to put you, I wanted to make you the captain of the ship. So
Yeah.
like, if you wanted to just do one-on-ones, like
Yeah.
I'm here to help, man. Like, let's just make this work. But ultimately, one-on-ones are the best way to start as
Yeah.
far as just building up the technique
Right.
and seeing where you're at, assessing your movement. You actually move really well, by the way. That made me really excited, and I think I probably told you that initially.
Yeah.
Because first thing we're going to assess is just like a proper squat, and I was like, oh man, like you got a good squat and good body awareness, and I could tell the pick up on the perfectionism. You're like,
Yeah.
no, I want to do this right. I'm like, oh, it's music to my ears. so we did some one-on-ones, and then you got into the classes eventually.
Yeah, so the first workout I think was just some sort of I think we did like box push-ups, some ring,
Yeah. Some squats, probably on the
some
rower
squats, a little bit on the rower, and I've told you this several times, but you know, of all the things that I've ever tried in fitness, which fitness has always been a struggle for me, finding something that I can stick with and be consistent, like. That first workout, there was like a light bulb. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I actually I finished this. I feel like I accomplished something, and I actually I want to do more.
Yes.
You know, and like you guys, you hear all the horror stories about CrossFit. Like you're gonna go in and they're gonna wreck you, and then you're gonna break your back, and they're gonna push you, and like sure, maybe that happens places, but that was not my experience here. You know, you guys absolutely care about the health of your athletes, whether that's a one-on-one or in a class setting. Like every time I do something wrong, somebody calls it out, which is super helpful because that's what I'm looking for.
Right.
You know, I don't do this for a profession. You know, so like even in class on Tuesday, my squat was a little bit off, and you came over and you're like, hey, make these 2 adjustments, and immediately my squat felt better, and that was like. That was incredible.
Absolutely.
You know, and I've been doing this for a while. You would think I would have a perfect squat down, but it's just the reminder that like things slip and you need somebody to get you back in.
Right.
You know.
Well, and again, with mobility and flexibility and stuff like that, it changes day to day. So if you had, you know, for example, we have people that travel a lot here, like, oh, I just got off the plane. Well, guess what? Your hamstrings are tight, your hip flexors are tight, your low back's probably cranky. So, you know, your squat might feel a certain way, but might look a different way. So that's why, you know, again, it's just getting a little bit educated on like, hey man, you know, like for me personally, I've been doing this long enough to kind of know where I'm at with my body. So it's like, I know my right side's a little jacked up. So sometimes I'm like, hey Chris, you mind watching my squat? Like, are my hips even at the bottom and so on and so forth. But so what's the group classes kind of been like? Have you been able to meet some members and chop it up a little bit with some of them?
Yeah, for sure. And the awesome thing about the way that you start in CrossFit, because I think everybody starts with the one-on-ones, the fundamentals, right?
Yep.
The class setting, like for me, especially being somebody who was not even remotely in shape when I started, the class was pretty intimidating to me.
Sure.
You know, because like I saw people, I'm like, man, they're like killing it.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
They're just, wow, they're still going?
Micah Druschel.
That's jeez, Micah. Take it easy, man. Stop losing weight. You look too good.
I know. That headband's not going to fit anymore.
Maybe that's a secret.
Yeah.
Micah, give me a headband,
headband.
please. I want to be like you. But the one-on-one setting, like once it gives you the confidence to then go into the class setting. And the cool thing is when we were doing the one-on-ones, like I was seeing some classes work out. And every time that we would work out, I'm like, okay, all right.
Yep.
I think I might be able to do that. So after 3 weeks, jumped into my first class, and I'm like, okay, sweet. This is the way to work out.
Right.
You know, you've got a coach that really knows what they're doing, and they have to. Like, they've been through official courses.
Right.
Then they like. So I can trust and know that every coach here, like, I trust them and I believe them. You know. And also, like, I would say with the class, from a community perspective, like going to the same class consistently and then getting to know the people in that class is huge.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so my class is the 6:30 class, and, you know, genuinely, those people are awesome.
Yeah.
You know, like I love working out with them, and like you really have this camaraderie. And when I'm the last one still going for the workout, everybody's around me saying, "All right, man, come on," and that gives you the last push that you need. Where otherwise, if I was working out by myself, there's no way I would have just quit.
It drives the intensity.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I can say. I worked out by myself for a lot of years, and you think like, oh, like I go hard. Whenever you get 10 strangers in a class with you and you're doing the same thing, you just naturally want to go harder. And the cool thing is, it doesn't matter if you're first. Like if you're super competitive, you want to be first, yay for you. But it's a team. You're a team atmosphere. It's awesome. Like you said, one of the things too, that it builds is accountability. So it makes our jobs a little bit easier as trainers. Whenever if Aaron's not there for a 6:30, we got people asking like, "Hey man, like have you seen Aaron? Like I haven't seen him in a couple of days or whatever." And it's like, "Oh, you know what? Yeah, you're right."
Well, and I need that.
100. Everyone,
And
every single person needs that.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone. So you're not in the minority there. But yeah, man, we'll kind of wrap it up a little bit. Our final question, and again, like I said, I'm not the typical host of this show. For first-time listener, I'm usually the guy that just says about 10 words the whole time. So if you're like, "Where's Jarrett? We want Jarrett back." Don't worry, Jarrett will be back. So we always like to finish the show with, what is your definition of fitness? It's a big one. So,
Yeah.
I
mean, I guess for me, fitness for me is all about health, and it's not just physical health. There's physical fitness, there's spiritual fitness, there's emotional fitness, and the fitness aspect is putting in the work every day to reach your goals.
Love it.
So whether that's spiritually, like for me, that's spending time with God. Emotionally, making sure that if I'm depressed, am I talking about it? Am I challenging myself to be open about whatever I'm struggling with? And then obviously physically, fitness is showing up and doing the work.
I love that. Being active. Don't be passive.
Don't be passive.
Yeah.
That's my 2018 is don't be passive.
I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you for
man.
listening to Everyday Athlete. Join us next week as we dive deep into the lives of people who make us great. Thanks.
See you guys.